Hello and welcome to Psalm 27. We are working through all the Psalms, and today I'm actually in the church shop. We have all kinds of good stuff in here. I'm in the Connections Cafe, and I have a meeting in about 15 minutes, so I'm going to go very fast. So, we live in a world, Pastor David Hopper, by the way, watch the other videos, like and subscribe. Okay, we live in a world that is profoundly, chronically anxious, which is ironic on what I just said. Anyway, if you look closely at our lives today, we're not just facing like these external pressures, we're battling internal panic. We panic about our bank accounts, our children, our health, cultural shifts in the world happening right before our eyes. Everything's changing. And when trouble hits, our natural human instinct is to scramble and run. We look for escape hatches. We map out worst case scenarios and we exhaust ourselves trying to control environments that are fundamentally uncontrollable. But thousands of years ago, a warrior king named David, he sat down in the dust of the Judean wilderness and he penned a song that offers a completely different blueprint for survival. He didn't have an easy life. But when we read Psalm 27, we are reading his journal, a man whose world was actively coming apart. And yet, throughout this entire text, there's a single beautiful thread that keeps him anchored. It's a reality that we need to desperately apply to our lives today. Fear loses its grip when God's presence becomes your primary pursuit in life. I need this. You need this. We all need this. Let's walk through it together. Verse 1, Psalm 27. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Whom shall I be afraid? Now, to understand why David calls God his stronghold, you have to sort of picture the geography he's in of ancient Israel, because he spent years fleeing from King Saul, who chased him like a wild animal. He was living in these limestone cliffs of Engedi, and these rugged desert fortresses of the Judean wilderness, which I've been to, by the way. It's really interesting. But in this ancient Near East time, a stronghold wasn't like a metaphor, it was literal. They were these elevated rock fortresses with massive walls. You can go there today. It was amazing. There's when an invading army would have to like build up dirt to get to you. That's how high you were in these rocks. Anyway, David, he looks at all of that, these massive stone walls, and he says, those rocks are not my ultimate safety. Yahweh is, God is, my Lord. Notice David doesn't say my circumstances are great, so I have no fear. Actually, he says the Lord is my light. Uh, that's why I can. The fear, the light doesn't eliminate the fear. It's still there, but I have no fear when I have the light. Imagine you're walking through this massive, unfamiliar like warehouse, and it's pitch black, and you are terrified of tripping over something or hitting a wall or falling through a hole, whatever. Your anxiety is really high. But if someone hands you a really high-powered flashlight, the warehouse didn't change. The obstacles didn't run out of the room. No, your fear left because you have the light you can see. Now, right now, you might be asking God to change your circumstances, but God's saying, let me be your light in your circumstances. When God is your stronghold, you don't need a guarantee that life changes or life will be easier. You just need to know where you stand in the light. All right, verse 2 and 3. When the wicked advance against me to devour me, it is my enemies and my foes who will stumble and fall. Though an army besiege me, my heart will not fear. Though war break out against me, even then I will be confident. David uses graphic Near Eastern military language here. Devour my flesh, an army besiege me. Historically, this ancient warfare was intimate. You didn't do it from a distance. It was terrifying. An army would surround a city, cut off its food and water supply, slowly starve the people out, and then when there was a battle, it was right there with a sword face to face. It's a slow motion nightmare. David knew the feeling of being surrounded by adversaries. He had the Philistines, he had Absalom, he had a bloody coup by his own son. And yet, looking back at all of these things, David remembered how God stepped in and would cause his enemies to trip over their own strategies. Verse 4 says, "One thing I ask from the Lord, this only do I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze on the beauty of the Lord and to seek him in his temple." When David talks about the house of the Lord and the temple, we must remember that Solomon's grand stone temple did not exist yet. Okay, so get that imagery out of your mind. So you're like, wait, he has a temple. No, he didn't have anything. In fact, it was a very modest tent, the tabernacle. He pitched it on Mount Zion, and that's where the Ark of the Covenant was housed. So ancient Near Eastern kings had these massive golden temples to project their power, and usually uh, like um, statues of themselves next to it. Like it was always these big productions. But David, he's saying, I don't care about all that archaeological, that the architecture, I should say, majesty sort of thing. I don't want to visit the tabernacle like a tourist. I want to dwell there as a resident. I want proximity to the presence of God. This is an absolute pivot point in this sermon or this core thread. Fear loses its grip when God's presence becomes your primary pursuit. So look at David's priority. He's surrounded by armies. His life is on the line. And what does he ask for? He doesn't ask for destruction of his enemies. He doesn't ask for an insurance policy or a bigger army. He asks for one thing, to be in the presence of the Lord. I want the light. If I have the light, what's out here doesn't really matter. We're stressed because we are seeking 50 different things to fix our lives. We seek a better job, a different relationship, a political shift, a medical breakthrough, and none of those things are inherently bad, but they make terrible gods. Think of a child during a massive thunderstorm. If that child stays in their bedroom and they're staring out the window in the lightning, they shake with tear. But what happens when they run into their parents' room and they crawl into bed with mom and dad? The thunder didn't change. It's still just as loud. The lightning's just as bright. The storm hasn't stopped, but the child falls asleep. Why? Because of the presence of the parent completely recontextualizes the danger of the storm. David knew that if he could just get into the presence of God, the size of his enemies would shrink. It says, "For in the day of trouble, he will keep me safe in his dwelling. He will hide me in the shelter of his sacred tent and set me high upon a rock. Then my head will be exalted above the enemies who surround me. At his sacred tent, I will sacrifice with shouts of joy. I will sing and make music to the Lord. Hear my voice when I call, Lord. Be merciful to me and answer me. My heart says of you, seek his face. Your face, Lord, I will seek. Do not hide your face from me. Do not turn your servant away in anger. You have been my helper. Do not reject me or forsake me. God, my Savior, though my father and my mother forsake me, the Lord will receive me. Verse 10 might hit a nerve. Though my father and mother forsake me. If you go back to 1 Samuel 16, the prophet Samuel comes to Jesse's house, his father, and he's there to anoint the next king of Israel. And all of his sons are there except for David. So he's probably writing that last line there in verse 10 from a place of, even my own father and mother didn't believe that I could be the next king. A family rejection early in life. So he's saying, notice the tone here, the shift. It goes from these bold declarations, whom shall I fear, to these desperate cries, hear my voice. Do not hide your face. It tells us something very vital about faith. Trusting God is not an emotion, it's a choice. You can be terrified and trust God at the exact same time. You can have the storm, you can have disasters, you can be facing darkness, but if you have the light, you are good. You can see through it. He's not asking for you to change my past, change how my parents thought about me, change that no one believed in me, change that I've had to run my entire life from enemies. I just want to be close to you, God, because in your presence, I can face all things. Many of us feel guilty when we are experiencing anxiety, and we think if we're a better Christian, I wouldn't feel these ways. But look at what David says. He is the ultimate man of faith, and he wrestles with these things and continues to have to remind himself that I want the light. I want the presence of you, Lord. He says, teach me your way, Lord. Lead me on a straight path because of my oppressors. Do not turn me over to the desire of my foes, for false witnesses rise up against me, spouting malicious accusations. I remain confident of this. I will see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. Wait for the Lord. Be strong and take heart and wait for the Lord. David ends that song exactly where we find ourselves today. In the middle of the waiting, we wait. The Hebrew word for wait in verse 14 is kavah. It doesn't mean you sit around twiddling your thumbs in passive boredom. It means to twist or braid fibers together to create a strong rope. You're waiting and you're twisting these fibers together to create a stronger rope in the waiting. It's active. It's an expectant binding of your heart to God's character. Every time you are choosing to pray instead of panic, every time you choose to praise instead of complain, you are braiding, you are waiting, you're braiding those little things into a stronger rope. Your weaknesses are becoming stronger. We have to apply this to our life. Stop trying to outrun your problems. Stop trying to micromanage your future. Stop letting the noise of the world dictate the state of your soul. Step into the shelter of its presence, knowing that you have the light. So let's lean into this. David, through the caves, the betrayals, the battlefields, fear loses its grip when God's presence becomes your primary pursuit. Let us be people who pursue the one thing. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.